On July 21st, 2017, a standard welfare check conducted by Chatswood police would uncover a gruesome discovery in a $1 million Greenwich home. Almost a year to the day, and another more disturbing find inside the house would put an end to a 15-year mystery. Greenwich is an upmarket suburb on Sydney's lower North Shore. The house median price today sits a little over $3.6 million. The picturesque steep winding roads run down to Mans Point, where you get a bird's eye view of Sydney Harbour and the city lights with a glimpse of Sydney Harbour Bridge. Head north up the hill and you will hit Pacific Highway, giving you a straight run over the Harbour Bridge and into the city. If you don't feel like driving, St Leonard's train station is less than a 10-minute walk. It's close to all the amenities the uber-wealthy desire. The lifestyle is second to none. In 2017, at number 43 Greendale Street in Greenwich, lived a 61-year-old man named Bruce Andrew Roberts. Bruce was born in September of 1956 in a small town called Coonabarabran in regional New South Wales. The population of Coonabarabran has remained relatively small over the years, struggling to crack 3,000 residents. It's known for its agricultural community, the farming of wheat, sheep and cattle. But it's also a major hub for tourism. The area's natural beauty, cultural heritage and dark skies, due to the low light pollution, attracts visitors from all over the world. It's also referred to as the astronomy capital of Australia, housing several large telescopes for astronomical research. Bruce's parents, Athol and Joyce, would separate when he was a young boy, and his mother Joyce, along with Bruce, and Bruce's older half-sister Denise, Joyce had birthed in a previous marriage, would relocate to St Peters in Sydney. Throughout Bruce's childhood, he would spend time travelling between his mother's St Peters home and his dad's property in Coonabarabran. Not an easy feat, as it's nearly 500 kilometres away, but he would spend time with his father on the property during school holidays. It was here that he developed a passion for shooting guns and riding motorbikes. By the time Bruce hit his early teenage years, he went to live at a boarding school in Orange. But this was short-lived, and he ended up returning to his father's property in Coonabarabran to live full-time, where he attended Coonabarabran High School. He would finish high school in year 10. A career in academia just wasn't for him. Throughout Bruce's life, he was known to keep to himself, preferring his own company. To outsiders, he was viewed as standoffish, shy, a bit of a recluse. Between 1972 and 1977, Bruce, being 16 to 21 years old, give or take, would spend time travelling between his mother's home and his father's property. He loved spending time with both his parents. Bruce, being from a wealthy family, he never had to work. He spent his days doing the things that he enjoyed, which was mostly things around the house or on his father's large property. Sometime in the late 1970s, his grandmother, on his mother's side, would pass away, leaving her home in Greenwich to Bruce's mother Joyce. Bruce and his mother would move to the number 43 Greendale Street property to live full-time. A decade or so later, in 1989, his mother Joyce would pass away, leaving Bruce a substantial inheritance. He would inherit over $1 million in shares. In today's money, that's equivalent to between $3 and $4 million. As the Greenwich property was owned outright, Bruce cashed in some of his shares to pay out his sibling Denise, give or take $200,000. And by July of 1991, the number 43 Greendale Street house became his. Bruce was clearly affected by his mother's passing and ceased all contact with his father Athol and half-sister Denise. He would never return to the Coonabarabran property. The Greenwich house sat on the corner of Greendale Street and Greenwich Road, optimal location to head down to the shore for the views or to the main road. To his neighbours in Greenwich, Bruce was an unassuming guy. He didn't appear wealthy. He was always seen wearing the same clothes. He never really ever left the house, with the exception of his daily short trips to the supermarket to buy food, and later in life to the pharmacy for medications to treat his varicose veins and hypertension. He was mostly seen occasionally in his front yard or going for the odd stroll. His neighbours, assuming he might be lonely as they never saw him have company over, did try to engage him in conversation over the years, but Bruce, well, he felt less was more, only ever managing to get a few words out before continuing on with his day. But with all of Bruce's minimal interactions with his neighbours, he did seem to enjoy having them around, even from afar, and he would send them letters and Christmas cards during the festive season. One of his neighbours, Bob, would later tell reporters that his Christmas cards were not only addressed to his entire family, but to the family dog. And over the years, the Christmas cards kept coming in, and again wishing the dog a Merry Christmas, even long after the dog had passed away. The neighbour did tell Bruce this, but I guess Bruce just forgot and kept including the dog in the cards wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Bruce loved sending letters and Christmas cards to some family members as well. It was his primary way of communication. I guess Bruce today would probably be classed as being on the spectrum. He was pretty socially awkward and didn't like interacting with people. He kept them at a distance. Over a decade leading into 2000, Bruce's neighbours noticed the decline in his mental health. He was often seen talking to himself on the odd occasions he was outside in his yard. He had steadily developed a hoarding obsession. There were overturned, rusted-out kitchen and bathroom appliances in the front and backyards, motorbike and car parts strewn everywhere, rotted planks of wood and building material scattered the grounds, and the house from the outside looked in disarray. The front gardens had overgrown and the rear shed, visible from the neighbours' backyards, had boxes of junk stacked to the ceiling. Even the neighbourhood kids referred to Bruce's house as the creepy house on the corner. It was late 2002 that Bruce's neighbours noticed his obsession with security. He had run barbed wire all around the property. His windows and doors were always kept closed and locked, draped with curtains and shutters, making it impossible to see inside. In his backyard, he had tied tin cans to a string line, an early detection warning system, should intruders attempt to enter his house from the rear of the property. From this point on, Bruce was rarely seen outside for extended periods of time, with the exception of his daily walks to the supermarket, pharmacy and library, gathering his essentials. You would see him and then you didn't. In early 2017, Bruce was having chest pains, shortness of breath and felt unusually fatigued. He's 61 years old at this point. He's getting older, so he does go and see a doctor on the 26th of May. His doctor wanted to refer him to a cardiologist for further investigation, but Bruce declined, and he never went back. By the 21st of July, just short of 2 months later, his neighbours noticed they hadn't seen Bruce around at all. He's usually seen every day walking up the street towards the local businesses and back again, but nobody had seen him. One of the neighbours even inquired with a cashier at the supermarket if they'd seen Bruce at all. They responded no. So a few of them would walk up to Bruce's front door and knock on it. They patiently wait, but there's no answer. So they knock again. They try to peek through the windows, but they can't see inside. They can see Bruce's 2 cars are in the driveway. As they are leaving his property, they notice that the letterbox is overfull. There's mail everywhere, so they pull some of it out and start looking at the dates. Some of it is quite a few weeks old. This is unusual. So they decide to call the police to perform a welfare check. On the 21st of July 2017 at 12:45 p.m, just after lunch, attending police officers and fire rescue, after continuously knocking on the front door with no response, forced entry to the house. They smashed through the front door, breaking a deadbolt and a security chain that had been latched on the front door. Upon inside, they were confronted with an overwhelming odour of decay and death. As they make their way into the house, there is junk everywhere. Old newspapers stacked a foot high on top of furniture. Boxes filled to the brim on top of one another stacked to the ceiling. There's rubbish everywhere. There's built up dust sitting inches high, coating everything. They create a path through all the hoarded belongings and make their way into the lounge room, where they discover Bruce's lifeless body, slumped over a turned-on heater. His face and chest were burnt beyond recognition. Bits of melted skin and dried blood caked over the heater elements. It's a grisly scene. Bruce would be pronounced dead at the scene, and his body would be transported by ambulance to the Royal North Shore mortuary at 6:30 p.m. It would be there that the medical examiner would determine Bruce Roberts' death as of natural causes. It was estimated that his lifeless body had been in the home for several weeks. His exact cause of death could not be formally ruled upon, as his body had sustained serious thermal damage from being found slumped over a live heater. Essentially, it had melted his internal organs. But no foul play was suspected, as the front door was obviously locked from inside the house, and due to some of Bruce's extreme security measures, he had nailed all the windows shut. After Bruce Andrew Roberts' death, the house sat undisturbed for almost a year. During that time, Bruce's Uncle John and Auntie Norma became concerned, as they hadn't heard from Bruce. They hadn't received any letters from him in a while, nor a Christmas card. It's December of 2017. Usually Bruce would have, at the very least, sent some Christmas cheer their way. So they asked their daughter Wendy to inquire about Bruce's welfare, and that's when they would receive the devastating news that Bruce had passed away months earlier. Bruce had a will written up on November 20th, 2002, and the executor of the will was solicitor David Alexander. Cool name, I know. Wendy would make contact with David on the 15th of January 2018. By May that same year, David Alexander, hired to manage the posthumous affairs of Mr. Roberts, escorted Bruce's uncle, auntie and other family members who were benefactors in Bruce's will through the property. Essentially, they can look through the items and deem if anything was of value. But there wasn't anything. It was all junk. They collected up the personal effects such as photographs and other personal items one does when a loved one passes. On May 15th, David Alexander's son found rifles and ammunition stored in the property. They weren't legally registered or even housed properly, so they immediately notified the police, who seized the weapons. Now, due to the condition inside and outside of the house, remember hoarded boxes and garbage strewn throughout the entire property, David Alexander was forced to hire a cleaning company to remove the hoarded items from the home and prepare the house for sale. It was going to be a big job. The cleaners hired were wearing full-length coveralls, gloves, face masks and eye protection. They commenced their cleaning duties on the 21st of May. In total, they would fill 10 skip bins to the brim of all of Bruce's clutter and debris. They would find further ammunition and firearms located in the property, a total of 13 guns all up, 3 shotguns, 6 bolt-action rifles, 3 self-loading rifles and an air rifle. On the 29th of May, the cleaning crew worked their way to a third bedroom in the home. It was here, under a rug, slumped up against a sofa, that they found something blood-chillingly shocking. Hi friends, if you're liking this true crime story so far, consider subscribing to my channel. I'll be aiming to drop a new video every 2 weeks. Your time and attention is your most valuable asset, and I don't want you wasting it. I appreciate all of you, and I hope we can spend some more time together getting spooked out by these stories. Now, let's get back to the story. As the cleaning crew made their way into another cluttered bedroom inside Bruce Roberts' home, in the corner was an old rug over the top of a giant bulge, casually leaning against an old sofa. The room, again, is full of garbage, newspapers, old phone books, and caked in inches of black dust. Cleaning crew members started bagging up the rubbish that littered the entire floor, removing boxes and other junk as they inched closer to the rug. At this stage, the cleaning crew was walking in and out of the house, placing materials in the skip bins provided that had been strategically placed in the yard for easy access. As two of the cleaners came upon the rug, without thinking, they swiftly removed it, launching inches of dust into the air that had built up over the years. As the dust settled, they looked down and saw what looked like a human figure. Maybe it was a mannequin, but it looked way too decayed to be made out of plastic. As their eyes fixed on it, whatever this was, it appeared to be wearing clothing. The figure was in a seated position, slumped against the wall and the side of the sofa. The skin was a blackish-brownish hue and tightly wrapped around what appeared to be bone. The skull had shrunken and teeth and hair were visible. The appearance was eerie and skeletal. A mummified corpse? Can't be. Maybe it's a movie prop. Other cleaning crew members enter the room and are stopped in their tracks. They start to notice air fresheners that have been placed around the body, 70 in total. They quickly exit the room and the police are called. Homicide detectives would arrive on the scene and the body would be transported for forensic evaluation. The home at number 43 Greendale Street in Greenwich is now a crime scene. As detectives searched the house, they discovered more illegal firearms hidden inside. It seems Bruce Roberts didn't hand in his guns during the mandatory buyback scheme of 1996, introduced after the Port Arthur massacre by former Prime Minister John Howard, who coincidentally lives up the road in Wollstonecraft, but affluent area, you get the idea. Rich, prominent people live there. The mummified corpse would be transported to Sydney Forensic Medicine Department in Lidcombe. A forensic pathologist, Dr. Sarita Maestri, would carry out a post-mortem and DNA analysis on the 31st of May. Using the few identifiable markers available, they used an ultraviolet blue light to make visible the tattoos on the body. The remnants of fingerprints still left on the fingers were also taken. They were able to identify the remains as that of a Shane Snellman. The cause of death was a gunshot wound. 15 metallic fragments were pulled from the body. They were found in the right side of the chest, stomach and neck area. It was believed that the next shot, just slightly above the collarbone, was the fatal one. The weapon was a shotgun, and given this fact, it is uncertain if more than one shot was fired, as shotgun cartridge pellets disperse as they leave the barrel. The further away the target, the wider the spread. Now, given the mummified state of the body, it was hard to pinpoint an exact time frame of when the death occurred. When a body is outside, left to the elements, a clearer picture can be determined. But in this case, the body was locked up in a house with the windows closed. All they knew for any certainty is that the death happened a long time ago. Homicide detectives, now with the name Shane Snellman, get down to work. They believe he was killed exactly where he was found, as shotgun pellet holes were discovered in the wall behind his mummified corpse. Dry blood was found on a nearby green trunk and more shotgun pellets were scattered on the floor beneath his body. So detectives wanted to know everything about Shane Snellman. Shane Snellman was born in Sydney in November of 1963 to father Herbert and mother Pamela. He had a younger sister named Belinda. In 1967, Shane just 4 years old, his parents would separate and he and his sister would be left in the care of his father Herbert. Roughly 3 years later, Herbert became ill and was unable to take care of his children. This resulted in the children being taken into state care, and they would be shipped around to different accommodation facilities. Most notably, Shane would end up in a Catholic convent school for boys. He would end up dropping out of high school at the age of 14 and subsequently moving in with his grandmother in Arncliffe. A year later, at the age of 15, Shane would be arrested for the murder of a homeless man. But after spending 10 months in jail, he would be acquitted of the crime and set free. It's now 1980 and Shane decides he's going to live with his father Herbert and his father's de facto girlfriend in East Hills. At this stage of Shane's life, he's already on the path of having it spiral out of control. He's doing recreational drugs quite often and committing criminal offences, everything ranging from theft to dishonesty and drug possession. At some point in 1985, Shane, now just 22 years old, decides he's going to get his life back on track. He relocates to the Central Coast, just north of Sydney, to live with his sister and her husband. He gained employment at an abattoir. But Shane would find out that old habits are hard to break. His employment wouldn't last long and Shane would find himself floating around the Central Coast staying with friends and acquaintances. Sometime in 1987, he temporarily moved back to Sydney and stayed periodically with his grandmother in Arncliffe and his father in East Hills. In 1989, his sister Belinda and her husband would relocate south of Sydney to the east coast of Wollongong. Shane decided to follow suit and live with them for a period of time. It was during this time that he met a woman named Philippa. During this time, Shane's life is spiralling due to drug use. He's being arrested and charged and is in and out of the correctional facilities, usually doing short stints for petty crime. Between 1996 and 1999, Shane and his girlfriend would move to Queensland, living for periods of time in the Northern Territory and moving back to New South Wales and living in the country town of Canawindra. I think it's important to understand that at this point in time, particularly for foreign viewers, Shane Snellman and Bruce Roberts' lives may sound similar, not working and travelling and living in different parts of the country. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Bruce was from a wealthy family. He didn't need to work, whereas Shane is living a nomadic addict's existence, relying on welfare payments and petty theft to feed his addictions. In Australia, it's not uncommon for addicts to up and move to different states at a moment's notice. The welfare system is most certainly strong here. In 1999, Philippa and Shane's relationship would come to an end, but the pair remained on good terms and stayed in close contact. Between 1999 and 2002, Shane Snellman would have further interactions with the police that would see him incarcerated, with his longest stint being in 2001, serving a total of 1 year for drug supply. Basically, he was dealing drugs to support his drug habit. Very common. He's not moving real weight or anything. Upon his release on June 27, 2002, he lived in a support home for newly released prisoners in Camperdown in the inner city of Sydney. A short train trip over to St Leonard's train station, which is short walking distance to Greenwich. These support homes are designed to provide stability and to help with reintegration into society for newly released prisoners. But in Shane's case, like with many addicts, the intended help and stability wouldn't take. Shane would only spend several months in the support home before leaving. Shane at this time was still receiving unemployment benefits, and as soon as the money was in his bank account, he would withdraw it in cash on the same day. In the months after his release, he would meet up with his former girlfriend, Philippa. She noted that Shane was extremely skinny and believed he had been using meth again. On the 18th of October 2002, Shane would be questioned by police. He and a woman named Nicole were suspiciously lurking around the area of Dulwich Hill in Sydney. Upon a random police search, Shane had absolutely no money on him. To police, he and Nicole appeared to be in the midst of a full-blown meth addiction. His next unemployment payment wouldn't arrive until the 23rd of October, so almost a week away. Shane had absolutely zero funds on him. On the 21st, just 3 days after Shane had been stopped by the police in Dulwich Hill, an acquaintance of his would be questioned by detectives investigating a stolen bike from Camperdown. The bike had been lifted between the hours of midnight and 10 a.m. when the owner noticed it missing. The acquaintance's name was Kristen, and he had attempted to pawn the stolen bike to a Newtown hock shop at exactly 10:53 a.m. But the owner became suspicious and called the cops. When questioned, he identified Shane Snellman and another man as having given him the bicycle to pawn, claiming that they said they didn't have sufficient ID on them to make the transaction themselves. As the 23rd rolled around, Shane's welfare payment would be deposited into his bank account, but remained untouched. Now, at the latter part of 2002, Shane's ex-girlfriend Philippa, having not seen him around and after making many inquiries, trying to contact him via phone and speaking to other residents he was known to reside with, decided to file a missing persons report with the police at the Rocks police station in the city. Shane, during these turbulent years of his life, had become estranged from his family. They hadn't really had much interaction with him, as he was a full-blown drug addict who was in and out of the prison system. The toxicology report from Shane Snellman's body had revealed traces of methamphetamines and ibuprofen, a painkiller. So his ex-girlfriend's Philippa's accounts of Shane back in 2002, looking like he was using meth again, were confirmed. So homicide detectives, armed with all this information, toxicology reports, witness statements and police testimony, are now somewhat certain of what may have happened to Shane Snellman. Between Monday the 21st and Tuesday the 22nd of October of 2002, Shane was lurking around Greenwich looking for something to steal. It's the middle of the day. Most people who live in this area are at work. Strung out on meth and with no money to his name, he approached the house on the corner of Greenwich Road and Greendale Street. The overgrown trees and bushes at the front of the property provided ample coverage from the street for him to sneak onto the grounds. He can see debris all around the yard and is looking for something of value to steal, but finds nothing. He glances up at the house and it's dead quiet. The house is run down and he thinks maybe someone isn't home. He sneaks up to the window and tries to look in, but he can't see inside. He listens and he hears nothing. No sound from a TV, no radio, quiet. He attempts to open a few windows, but they are locked. He tries the door handle, but again is stopped. He again is listening attentively, but there is no sound coming from inside the property. He's certain nobody is home. He finally comes across a window that is unlocked and slowly and quietly starts lifting it open. But what Shane doesn't realise is the homeowner Bruce Roberts had armed himself with a shotgun the second he saw him enter his property. Bruce is standing in the doorway with the shotgun pointed at the window, watching as the shadow of the window, illuminated on the curtain, slowly starts lifting. The curtain slightly flutters as wind is blown in from outside. Bruce is holding his breath. He's hoping whoever it is will stop and just go away. As the window stops at the top, Bruce sees an arm protrude the curtain and the man's shoes step onto the floor. He's entered his house. Shane Snellman, having just climbed through the window, he's crouched down. He slowly draws back the curtain. As he looks up, he sees the barrel of a shotgun pointed at him. Before it registers what is happening, he hears bang, and then it goes black. Bruce, having just shot the intruder dead, is now faced with a decision: call the police and be charged with murder and illegal firearms possession, or dispose of the body. Bruce at this stage is 46 years old. He can't believe what has happened. He's checking the windows and is looking outside for anybody who may be with whoever this is, now lying dead on his bedroom floor. He's wondering if anybody heard the gunshot. Are the police on the way? Should I call them, he thinks. But I'll go to jail if I do. So he waits. He sits down in his lounge room with the shotgun on his lap. His senses are heightened. He can hear a pin drop. As the day turns into night, and then into day again, Bruce hadn't moved. He hadn't slept a wink. He realises at this stage that nobody is coming. He slowly moves into the doorway of the bedroom. He's hoping it was a nightmare and that there isn't a dead body on the floor of his spare room. But as he glances in, there he is, slumped in the corner, leaning against the wall and the couch, in a seated position, stone cold dead. He can't stand to look at him, so he gets an old carpeted rug and covers him up. Out of sight, out of mind, he thinks. Over the next days, weeks and months, the smell from a rotting corpse is wafting through the house. So he buys air fresheners and throws them into the room next to the body, closing the door behind him. Over time, he would buy around 70 air fresheners to mask the odour of decay. All the while, the body of Shane Snellman, just 39 years old at the time of his death, sits there in a $1 million house in an exclusive part of Sydney, and it wouldn't be discovered for another 15 years. Some of what I've said about Bruce and Shane's chance meeting is my speculation, as not much is known on that particular side of the case. I speculate Shane was doing an attempted burglary during the day, as most house break-ins happen between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. while people are at work. And given the loudness of a shotgun blast, had it been at night while people were at home asleep, somebody would have heard something. I do believe Shane was shot as soon as he entered the house because the projection from the blast was downward, travelling left to right. So crouched down just after entering the property, with Bruce standing and firing at him, does make sense. Given the fact that Bruce Andrew Roberts had never before since the incident been in trouble with the police, I don't believe he did this with any malice or intent. Bruce Andrew Roberts was a mentally ill man, a hermit, a hoarder, a recluse, and Shane Snellman was a desperate drug addict looking for his next fix, who just happened upon the wrong house. The story would be front page news, and even with all the negative attention, the house would be sold in August of 2018, just 3 months after Shane Snellman's body was found. Over 200 people would be in attendance at the auction, and it would sell for over $2 million, $270,000 above the reserve price. The buyers would knock down the house, building a large mansion-style home in its footprint, leaving behind the tragedy of the 2 bodies found in the premises of the home, and again, a further declaration to the affluence of the area.